What does the Lord require of you? What does the Lord require of you? What does the Lord require of you? Justice, kindness, walk humbly with your God. Justice, kindness, walk humbly with your God. To seek justice and love kindness and walk humbly with your God. To seek justice and love kindness and walk humbly with your God. What does the Lord require of you? 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 Justice, kindness,
What does the Lord require of you?
Justice, kindness,
What does the Lord require of you? Justice, kindness.
Welcome. It's me, Mrs. B. I missed you last week. We didn't have a video session, so I'm so glad to see you here again today. And we're going to hear the story of Moses, God's chosen leader, or chapter 8. Who, me? Before we get started, I want you to go get your faith formation bag and your notebook and All of Us book. And you'll also need to dig out your Play-Doh. So why don't you go do that, hit pause, go find all that, and come back. I'll be waiting for you right here. Okay, I always like to start by asking a couple questions. If we were in the same room together, we could hear each other's answers, but get our brains working a little bit. So let me ask, what is a way that your family shines? What is something that your family's known for? Maybe it's the best barbecue on the block. Maybe it's your decorations for Halloween and Christmas in your front lawn. Maybe it's your best spaghetti dinners. I wonder what your family shines with. My family is full of really creative people. We have artists and photographers and teachers who think up creative ways to do things. My next question is, what is something you have a passion for? What is something you love almost the most of anything? Some people might even say it burns within you. Is it a sport that you play, or music, art, writing, seeking justice, doing kind acts for others? Since I was a little girl, I've always wanted to share God's love with others. So let's pray. And we're going to pray a special kind of prayer today. It's a thank you prayer. So I want you to take out your Play-Doh and warm it up in your hand. Depending on how long it's been sitting in your bag, it might have gotten a little stiff. And in my case, hard to open up this little container. But I want you to get your Play-Doh in your hand, and then I want you to make it into the shape of a heart. See if you can do that. My Play-Doh is very cold here, so I'm going to make mine into a heart. You have to kind of make a little point at one end maybe, and then push in on the top. So while you're doing that, make a heart, and I want you to think of a person for whom you are grateful. Maybe someone you love or someone who loves you. And that's a prayer. Looking at that while you're making that heart, that's a prayer of gratitude for that person. Okay, now I want you to make that Play-Doh into a ball. big or small, depending on how much Play-Doh you have. Maybe it's shaped here a little bit like the earth. I want you to think of something in the world for which you are thankful. What would that be? Could be one of God's creations, the trees, the colors, the animals. What are you grateful for? Today it's this beautiful fall weather. And then I want you to make a pancake, flatten that out. Think of this as kind of making a blanket that you could wrap around yourself. And think of something in your home for which you are thankful. Could be anything in your home. So we can pray while we're using our Play-Doh, and our actual act of making the shapes is also part of our prayer. And I'm going to pray out loud while you hold your Play-Doh in your hand and make it nice and warm. God, thank you for all the gifts you give us. Thank you for our homes, the people who love us, and the whole world. We are grateful for everyone and everything that you have made. Amen. So you can put your Play-Doh back in your little container, seal it up nice and tight to keep it fresh. I want to have you remember that we're doing a new Bible verse. It's behind me. Here we are. You are my God. I worship you. And you can also find that in your notebook. It's on the page that was the last page of the primary leaflets, the last page of the primary, but we've moved it to be in the front, and it's down here at the bottom. So we're going to read just a little bit more of it this time. You are my God, I worship you. In my heart, I long for you, as I would long for a stream in the scorching desert. Let me say that again. You are my God, I worship you. In my heart, I long for you as I would long for a stream in a scorching desert. A desert. What is a desert? So go to primary leaflets, and I want you to find session 8. It says who, me at the top. It's got Moses. And then we're going to turn that page and find this page that says in the desert. See if you can find that. Session 8 and then page 3, in the desert. So what makes something a desert? Here it says deserts can look different. Some have trees and plants. Some have just sand. Some don't. But they all have one thing in common. Very little rainfall. In fact, a desert is an area that has less than 10 inches in the whole year. Some places get us 10 inches in one storm. That's a big storm, but still. So a desert has very little water. And every living creature, plant or animal or human, needs water to live. So water is very important. And streams or little rivers that might exist in a desert, that's where the life is. So saying I long for God like a river in the desert, because God gives me life, and I want that gives me life. So it's like longing for water. And if you look at the bottom here, there's some cute little questions about what do you want when you're hot? A warm blanket or a cold ice cream cone? A warm drink or a cool fan? So there's some things you can look at. What would you want if you were in a desert? Probably not a winter coat. Okay, so we're going to connect to our Bible story today. So you know what that means. Find your All of Us book. And this time we're going to turn to page 50, which is chapter 8. And it says, who, me. So while you're finding that, let me give you a little background of our story. So Moses was an Israelite or Hebrew, same thing, but he was raised in an Egyptian home. So if you remember, to save his life, his mother puts him in a basket in the river, and Pharaoh's daughter finds him and chooses to raise him in her home. So he is a Hebrew, but he grows up as an Egyptian. So he knows both worlds, and those worlds are very different. The Hebrew people are slaves and have to work very hard and suffer many injustices. And the Egyptians are the ones that hold power over them. So Moses has an interesting insight. So let's turn, like I said, to page 50. You can read along with me, or you can go to page 54, and while I'm reading, color in some pictures with your crayons or colored pencils like I did earlier. Okay, here we go. Moses grew up in a palace with the Egyptians, and one day he went out to see his people, the Israelites. They were suffering as slaves. In anger, Moses killed an Egyptian who was beating a slave. Pharaoh was furious, so Moses ran away to the land of Midian. There he married Zipporah, had children, and cared for his father-in-law's sheep. One day he led his flocks out to Horeb, the mountain of God. The Lord's messenger appeared to him in a flame of fire in the middle of a bush. Moses saw that the bush was in flames, but it didn't burn up. Then Moses said to himself, "Let me check out this amazing sight and find out why this bush isn't burning up." When the Lord saw that he was coming to look, Moses called out to him, "Moses, Moses." Moses said, "I'm here." Then the Lord said, "Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals because you are standing on holy ground." He continued, "I am the God of your father, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God." Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, "I've clearly seen my people oppressed in Egypt. I've heard their cry of injustice because of their slave masters. I know about their pain. I've come down to rescue them from the Egyptians in order to take them out of the land and bring them to a good and broad land, a land full of milk and honey." God told Moses that he would be the one to lead the people out of slavery. But Moses said to God, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God said, "I'll be with you, and this will show you that I'm the one who sent you. After you bring the people out of Egypt, you will come back here and worship God on this mountain." But Moses said to God, "If I now come to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' they're going to ask me, 'What's this God's name?' What am I supposed to say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am. So say to the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" God told Moses to go to the leaders of the Israelites and tell them that they would soon be set free. Then Moses replied, "But what if they don't believe me or pay attention to me? They might say to me, 'The Lord didn't appear to you.'" The Lord said to him, "What's that in your hand?" Moses replied, "A shepherd's rod." The Lord said, "Throw it down on the ground." So Moses threw it on the ground and it turned into a snake. Moses jumped back from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Reach out and grab the snake by the tail." So Moses reached out and grabbed it, and it turned back into a rod in his hand. "Do this so that they will believe that the Lord, the God of their ancestors, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God, has in fact appeared to you." Again the Lord said to Moses, "Put your hand inside your coat." So Moses put his hand inside his coat, and when he took it out, his hand had a skin disease, flaky like snow. Then God said, "Put your hand back inside your coat." So Moses put his hand back inside his coat, and when he took it back out, the skin of his hand had returned to normal. If they don't believe you or pay attention to the first sign, they may believe the second sign. If they won't believe even these two signs or pay attention to you, then take some water from the Nile River and pour it out on dry land. The water that you take from the Nile will turn into blood on the dry ground. Moses still didn't want to go to Pharaoh. "I've never been able to speak well," he said. God promised to help Moses speak and teach him what to say. Even still, Moses asked God to send someone else. Finally, God told Moses that his brother Aaron could go with him and speak for him. Moses picked up his shepherd's rod and went. Wow, there's some crazy stuff going on in that story. So let's do some wondering about God's story and how our story fits into it. If we look at the page 54 and look down at this image down here, imagine seeing a bush that's on fire but doesn't burn up. And then imagine you hear a voice coming from that bush. What would you think? I wonder if there were any other sights or sounds that Moses was hearing or seeing. He just probably couldn't believe it. In this picture, you see a little dove, and that picture, the dove always signifies the Spirit in all of our pictures, so I thought that was interesting that little dove was there. Have you ever seen something amazing? I think there must have been a lot about this that Moses didn't understand or couldn't find answers for. Do you think when it comes to God, not everything has an easy explanation? If we look down here in the bottom of page 55, Moses is looking pretty distressed here. He's been coming up with a lot of excuses about not wanting to talk to Pharaoh. He says, "Isn't there someone else who can go?" What do you think of his excuses? What if they ask, "Who sent me?" What if they want to know your name? What if they don't believe me or don't pay attention to me? I don't speak well. Oh, someone else would do much better. Can you send someone else? A lot of excuses. But I think there's a difference between being afraid and trying to find excuses so you don't have to do something. Everyone feels afraid sometimes, and everyone finds some things hard to do. I wonder what you do when you're afraid. I think sometimes I try to think of times when I was brave or times where I felt God was with me, when things turned out all right. It gives me more courage. Imagine being asked by God to do something important. Would you have excuses or would you end up doing what God asked in the end? If we look in Spotlight, page 26, so Spotlight's a section in the back, so this is pretty close to the back. You'll find these two pages that say doubts and excuses. And these kind of represent some of the doubts and excuses that Moses had, but I think that we could have as well. It's too hard. What would you say to someone who thinks they can't do something because it's too hard? Maybe give it a try. Maybe you're stronger than you think. You don't know unless you try. It's too scary. What does it feel like to do something scary? What would you say to someone who thinks they can't do something because it's too scary? Sometimes you might want to do the right thing, but it's hard. There's someone better, someone else. You should ask somebody else. I'm not the right person. Could you think of words of encouragement to tell somebody when they're afraid and think someone else could do it better? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I've never done this before. I don't know what to do. What would you say to someone who doesn't know how to start? Your turn. You can write down at the bottom here, draw a picture or write a story about a time when you had doubts or made excuses. If you want to do that right now, hit pause and I'll wait for you right here, or it can be something that you do later. But either way, I hope that you look at those pages again and think about your own life. All right, so finally, we are going to close with our closing prayer and then sing our final song. If you want, you can hold that Play-Doh in your hand again. If not, let's just say it together, or I will say for you. God, sometimes we respond with doubts and fears or excuses when you ask us to do something important. Give us confidence to follow your way, even when we aren't sure how to do it. Guide us in all we do. Let us trust you. Amen. So I hope you have a great week. this week. I hope you stay well. And I hope that you come back next week and gather together. Let's sing.
Bring your peace when I'm lost. When I'm lost, Lord, bring your peace. Bring your peace when I'm alone. When I'm alone, Lord, bring your peace. And make us instruments to sing your praise. And give us love for each other. Into a world that longs to hear. Send us, Lord, to bring your peace. Bring your peace when we're afraid. When we're afraid.